Hi, welcome to Foreigner in the Philippines. I had a question which I think is a valid inquiry, and even though to me it seems obvious because I'm part of the subject of the question. And the question is, why do expats come to live in the Philippines? Gosh, I'm puzzled that anybody has to ask this question, not to put it down, but because I have come to live in the Philippines and I'm happy here, I'm wondering, wow, surely this is a no-brainer, you know? But let's just take the whole thing seriously and just deal with it as it comes. Now, a lot of expats come here, and not all of them are broke, right? They're not all in the Philippine psyche. They're not as they are in the Philippine psyche of being wealthy. They're not wealthy. It's just that the exchange rate is very good. So because the exchange rate is very good, expats can come over here from all countries, and especially if they come, even like me, with a very modest pension, they can still live. Now, if they manage to find something to do, then that's which brings in some extra income. And let's face it, the very way in which we are communicating right now is the way that many expats find a way to live. Now, what other possible reasons could there be? Well, certainly if they come from a cold country, if they come from, I don't know, from Germany or the UK, where they have pretty cruel winters, then they're not going to have those anymore. And that's really important for anybody who loves good weather. I can remember when I was in the UK, if anybody went on vacation, they'd go away for their 2 weeks or their 3 weeks if they were lucky vacation, and when they got back, the first question that anybody would ask was, what was the weather like? In fact, the only measure of how good a vacation was how good a tan you had, how brown were you, which is an irony, isn't it, when you think about racial the racial tensions. All these white people who take it into their heads to hate people because of their color, and yet probably when they go on vacation, that's the very thing that they seek to change in themselves. They want to get a tan and look brown. Yeah, always seems an irony to me, and for me too. Okay, because I like to have a tan. It's not something that I have to dedicate any time to here, but yeah, I like that. So, what other possible things could you have? For me, the beauty of the country, and especially in my own case, just coming home or leaving home to go somewhere in the morning. I drive a truck through the most beautiful countryside. As I look around in almost any direction, I can hardly see any houses for a number of miles. And it is beautiful. It's nature at its best, because it's not actually usually farmed land. Yes, there are, for Beth and I, there are rice fields, and there are various places in the land, but they're obviously, just by definition, they're down in the lower part of the land. So you always find them in the valleys. So the idea that there are cultivated areas doesn't seem to come into your image or the imagery that you see. So there's that. There's beauty. If you are a person who likes statuesque, blonde, blue-eyed people, the Philippines is not for you. But then you wouldn't be coming here, would you? You have to like Asian beauty, and if you like Asian beauty, where better to come than to come to the Philippines? personally, I found that the Filipino people are among the friendliest people in the world. It's not that everybody else in the world goes around hating you if you're a visitor, but for instance, I've been to France, and when I was in the UK, I would go to France on vacations. I would go and visit, say, Paris, which is a fabulous city. Now, did I find that the French people were friendly? Well, actually, yes, I did, and they are appreciative of beauty. They love children. All of these things, but they are jealous. They are jealous guardians of their language, and their language still has gender. So you still have whether something is male or female, and in the rest of the world, they're busy crucifying the English language or their language by removing gender. Like right now, you are, if you speak up for someone, you are a spokesperson, not a spokesman or a spokeswoman. And I don't know how true this is, but at one time I read that in France they actually have somebody whose job it is to guard the language, so they don't have any of this pollution of the language, and as a result, the French language is as pure as it ever was, except of course that things are, what's the derivation for this word and that word, and it may not all be originally from France. It could be like most other languages from Latin or Greek, and it has derivations and origins, but mainly they protect the language. So I'm getting very long-winded on this, as I usually do, but what it amounts to is that if you go into a store and you say to whoever is serving you, excuse me, do you speak English? They might say no, and not help you. Now, if you go in and say, no matter how clumsily, and it can't be any clumsier than this, bonjour, monsieur, or mademoiselle, or excusez-moi, French, you're in. You tried, you graced their language with a little effort, and they will be very, very friendly and very, very helpful. So, let's get back to the Philippines. The Philippines is automatically helpful. I just find that if you ask for something, the person, if you ask for something and say, excuse me, where is the store that has this or that they'll almost take you by the hand and walk you 100 yards down the road to where a store is next to theirs and say, here you are. Just incredibly helpful people, and they have a smile on the face. I mean, they just laugh and smile at everything, and it's a wonderful place to be. This morning I went in and I'd been given some information about the bus that we're having repaired, and I didn't actually realize that James was handing me a broken water pump from our bus. I mistakenly thought that it was from his multicab. So when he said, do you want this, I didn't like to say no, so I said, well, fine, is it any good? And he said no. See, and he handed me a timing belt, and I thought that he thought that I could put it to some use, so I didn't want to offend him. So I said, well, fine, and I put it in the back of my truck. Now, then I went to where the bus is being repaired and got all uptight with the guy and said, Marlon, and he said, as he came in, he rode in on his motorcycle and he said, hello, my friend. And I said, I'm not your friend. That's my bus there that's in pieces and I need it. So what are you doing? And he said, I gave your friend the I gave him the belt and then it clicked. So, but everybody else around is laughing and joking and smiling and in a good mood, and here I am, the foreigner, and I'm the one that's getting uptight. So then I have to say, he didn't tell me that. What? I'm sorry, he didn't tell me that. What is the... And then he tells me the situation, and he says, I can't get these parts at the local place. Can you get them? Well, we went to Dubai today, and we got them. So then we come back, and I hand them to him, and I have to make a joke, and I have to apologize. And that's often the way that it is, that Filipinos don't get as uptight as everybody else seems to do. So, do they ever get in a bad mood? Well, of course they do. But the thing is that the normal level of communication around in the Philippines seems to me to be just excellent. It seems to be where they're willing, and they start off from the viewpoint that I'm here to help you. And that's what they do. They've always got a smile for you, and they're willing to help. And I find that wonderful. So one of the things that you have to get used to when you're coming to the Philippines is you better leave that war behind you. And foreigners don't actually realize how they carry these mini wars with them. I listened to someone, didn't even see, but I could hear that he was actually a Brit, and he was screaming at the top of his voice because somebody had accidentally come close to hitting him, and he was saying, "You nearly knocked me down, you could have killed me, you could have done this, you could have done that," and he was so angry. Now, I'm sure that you must have heard people say, well, he just made me mad. Well, no, whoever he was, whatever happened, he didn't make you mad. The mad was there already. You just dramatized it. So that's something that you have to get used to when you get here. So, money, a place to live, beautiful weather for the most part. Certainly we have been so incredibly lucky in Bohol, and in the part of Bohol, we're up in the mountains in Burgos, and even though the rain can be relentless, and I mean relentless, and the mud is bad, and getting down to the road is a challenge, all of those things, well, okay, but I'm not freezing my butt off in the morning. I don't have to use my credit card to scrape the ice off the windshield. These are challenges which I didn't rise very well to. Somebody else, a comment that I read, and he said, well, the temperature here, and then he mentioned some freezing cold temperature, and he said, in the winter it's a real struggle for me to get out of bed to go to work. And I remembered that feeling. I used to go into the fetal position when I was living in London, when a really hard winter dug in. So there's no winter, there's no cold weather, there's rain, but even in the rain you're not freezing your butt off like you do in the UK. Now this suits me. It doesn't suit everybody. I've said this many times. Our little paradise here, it's not a paradise, it's actually a scruffy little farm, and people are always telling us how scruffy it is, aren't they? Telling us how we should clean up and we should pick up the litter and we do this, even though we do it, and then it gets dirty again. It's funny how that happens, isn't it? So, my idea of paradise, I'm here. I was talking to a friend who is a happy expat from New Zealand, my friend Kevin, and we were talking, and now he loves New Zealand. He's a proud New Zealander, and he probably might come to live here to be with the lady that he has found another chance with, but he doesn't seek to live anywhere else on a permanent basis than New Zealand, because he thinks it's the most wonderful place in the world, and for him it is. And I probably would think the same myself. But when we were talking about this example of winning the lottery. That's always a good one, isn't it? It opens all the doors of your mind to look at things slightly differently, because then you'd be looking at it, you're being invited. If someone says, what would you do if you won the lotto? You're being invited to take all of the blocks off your thinking, all of the restrictions, all of the boundaries, all of the defenses that you've erected to keep you protected in the life that you lead. And you're being invited to think again, anew. And I had to say, I'm where I want to be. And if I won a huge amount of money, it wouldn't impact my life personally. And Kevin made the observation, well, you already have what you want. And that's absolutely true. And maybe that's why expat, maybe that's the answer to this question, which was a far-reaching question, but actually a simple one. Expats, if they have any brains at all, they come here and they accept it as it is and don't try to change it to be like the place that they ran away from. And that's about it, isn't it? Sometimes we run away from here to get to there, and then when we get there, we then start working hard at making it the same as here. Just stay where you are. That's the best thing if that's the case. So, money, good exchange rate, beautiful people, beautiful climate, beautiful country, a second chance to live again, a second chance to have a good marriage if you're prepared to work hard, second chance to have a family. Even if it's ready-made, it's a second chance to be part of a community that is very much oriented towards family. Now, Beth and I, as is well known to anybody on our video, we're after our own child. We're after our own child, right? Which is a whole lot different to having the pleasure of the company of other people's children, which we certainly have when we go to church every Sunday. In my truck, I have in my bus, I cart about and get to church and from church and everything, and I have the pleasure of wonderful kids who are fun and laughing and it's wonderful. But of course, they're not mine, and I want my child. That's easy to understand, I think, for most people. So I hope that answers the question of why do expats come here? Why the hell would you not want to come here? Now, if you're a techie type, if you like things absolutely to be OSHA, if you want things to be absolutely just so, all in regulation order, this is probably not the place for you. If you don't like any kind of mess, it probably isn't the place for you. If you don't like what in the song used to be the mañana mentality, which is tomorrow. What was the song? Mañana, mañana, mañana is good enough for me. That's like saying tomorrow, tomorrow, tomorrow is good enough for me. Means it'll be okay tomorrow. Now, if it doesn't happen today and an expat is getting all upset and uptight, well, they were supposed to be here today, that was the arrangement. Been there myself, probably only today. It doesn't matter. It just isn't that important, as are so many things that we Westerners, we foreigners, we expats rage about being important. It turns out that it was hardly important at all, and we were the only ones who were getting upset. Thanks for looking in. This is A Foreigner in the Philippines. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Bye for now.